And we're live. This is Lit Literature. This is your host, JP, aka The Demon. We're here again for another History of Westeros episode 3. And we're here with the doc himself, Mitch of the Rye. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Oh, did I get you? Mm-hmm. Now we did. All right. So.
And the question asker.
Yes.
The director, who doesn't know much about the world.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, the director here, as always. And all right, it's been a little bit, so we need to refresh our memories. We were asking a boatload of questions last time.
Well, what we needed was a map.
We did.
We got a map now.
Provide.
We have more materials now, folks, and we are recording this one. So, where should we start?
Got any place? Any very interesting historical significance? I know. Like, what's kind of like your favorite thing to talk about or learn about?
So it's at this point I've gathered a lot of knowledge, but I'm starting to like really examine things. And what George R.R. Martin really likes to do is he likes to present things as like, this is great, and like if you take just for example like knights, like who are the truest knights? Well, oftentimes they're not knights, and a lot of times knights are really pretty shitty. Like when they introduce a character and they tell me he's a knight, I'm like, oh, he's gonna be a pompous fucking asshole. You only get like you get like one Barristan Selmy, you get one Brendan Tully, you get one Garland Tyrell.
Wait, hang on. Can I interrupt you there?
Yeah.
What do you think of Beric Dondarrion then?
Yeah, Beric Dondarrion. Again, he qualifies as a true knight, in my opinion. Vast majority of knights don't live up to the standards.
Gotcha.
And so you have people like Brianna Tarth, who really is the embodiment of a knight. You have Sir Duncan the Tall, who even knights sit there and look up to and say, oh, he's the knight, like the best example of a knight there is. Well, he was never knighted, so he was no true knight. So this idea that, you are great, that kind of drives me nuts. But it's
Although maybe, do you think it's purposeful?
Oh, on Martin's part?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what I was thinking.
But the latest thing that I've been thinking of is... how mad the Targaryens are. And I really don't see a whole lot of evidence to support the madness. Again, there's a couple that are certainly unstable, but I don't know.
Besides the Mad King you're talking about?
Exactly. So you have the Mad King, but they talk about the Targaryens like the madness is this, it's a 50-50 shot. You're either going to be normal or you're going to be fucking crazy. Well, if you look at like Viserys, okay, certainly he's not normal, but imagine like growing up in exile. Like imagine growing up as a prince for part of your life and then being a beggar for parts of it. Like I can understand how he would be the way he is.
It seems less mad and more, are you going to be a decent human or a bastard?
Exactly.
50-50.
So, and again, Targaryens have their bastards, but like, they talk about madness again with Aerion Brightflame. Aerion Brightflame was a good warrior. Like he was just an arrogant, narcissistic fucking asshole. That's not a mental illness. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's not like, oh, you have schizophrenia, running in your, it is a genetic disease. So,
well, I guess the one thing that keeps coming I think George R. might keep hinting at is the issue with the incest. And so they talk about it, with the Targaryens, because they have a lot of incest in their traditional incest, I guess, in their marriages. And then, of course, you have...
Yes, the traditional incest.
Yeah. The traditional incest. Then you have...
From days of yore.
Yeah. and then you also have, though, the Joffrey of the world, who, I think there were several quotes throughout the books where... Cersei was, or it was Jamie, I can't remember by this point, but they're talking about how maybe it was the incest that caused that little prick to be a little prick.
Definitely seems to make sense considering the Targaryens and then the Mad King.
But then you see Cersei and you're like, maybe it was just Cersei.
Yeah.
Maybe she just...
Well, no, Jamie was absolutely that arrogant before he got his hand cut off. He was as impertinent. I mean, you sit there and you look like, wow, Cersei's not really thinking ahead. And then there's Jamie, who's so not thinking ahead, he charges into battle every time. He had one move, and it was, I'm going to fucking kill you with my sword. Not anything else. That's it.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Now that he has to solve things with his mind.
I think also being where we are in the show for me and the books, sometimes it's also easy to forget that, Jamie was capable of pushing a child out of a window. So it's not like he's not
It's funny how even I should really hate him more than I do for all of the scumbag things that he's done. Yet somehow
I think everybody likes
George R.
the idea of
turned me to
redemption.
not like him, but kind of redeem himself, so to speak. So,
or at least be interesting.
Yeah, which he certainly is. And like, it was funny how like Genna, what was it, that line? You're not Tywin's son, Tyrion is.
Right.
You know, like
we talked about that last time. Actually.
yeah,
that
we did,
was
but
one of those
still,
conversations. Which exactly. So how about this? Let's go down the Lannister hole for a while.
all right, let's do that.
What do you know about the Lannisters' past? Obviously, I know as far as Tywin's father. At least some history there.
Okay, so I can do like Age of Legends, like so kind of the very, very, very start, and Land the Trickster or Land the Clever.
Now, but can I ask a question before you begin your story?
I can do that, or I can go backwards like you want from where you know.
I would like you to start there. But my question is, at that time, when we're getting back to Land the Trickster, they were not a powerful house, were they?
No, so this all goes with the story. So it's called Casterly Rock because the Casterlys built
rock.
it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's why they call it the Rock. Anyway, so
And who are the Casterlys for
The
those of
Casterly-
us that don't know?
So, legend has it that the Casterlys, the founder of the house, was a hunter, and he tracked a lion or a lioness who was killing his crops and what have you, and he tracked her to her lair and killed her. But he allowed like the cubs to go free because they were innocent. And in that moment, the gods decided to shine a light into this cave, which would later become Casterly Rock, and there was a vein of gold ore. And so the rock isn't so much a castle as it is a mountain with a castle inside of it. Visenya Targaryen, she's the more militant of the Targaryens. She goes, "Thank God this guy decided to meet us out in the field, as opposed to us trying to do this because we can't. There's nothing we could do." And this, mind you, this is after Aegon burned Harrenhal.
Right.
Yep.
The greatest castle in the land, and she's like, this would have been fucking harder to do.
Right.
Tougher nut to crack. So, yeah. So the Casterlys lived there, and they reigned really well. And then you have Land the Clever, or Land the Trickster. He is the...
I'm wondering if those nicknames are depending on how you know him.
Yeah.
Land the Trickster or Land the Clever.
There's
Is he your
like,
buddy or...
there's like a ton of different epithets. So, yeah, take your pick, really, as long as it's, sharp. You know what I mean? Because that's what he was known for. And so the story is that, what he somehow got into Casterly Rock, and he tricked the Casterlys out of it. And so there's some that it's like, oh, he would release mice, and he would, throw his voice in the hallways, and it would scare people. And so they got scared, and they went out. Another one is that he went in and he took all of the Casterly maiden daughters and boogered them up. And that's what it is. But most people think that it was just the male line of the Casterlys ran out, and the Lannister, that was the scion of the house. Because we're not really sure about the Age of Legends. Like, are they real or not? That's still up for speculation. And like, if you go to the Erie's kind of history, like the Winged Knight, the Falcon Knight, which ones, they all predate Aaron's, like the House of Aran. But like now, as you're telling the story, it's always an Aaron Knight, who happens to be this character. So again, it's history.
Gotcha.
And that means that it's vague at best.
Good.
So going back to your thing.
Yes.
Okay, so you have Tywin's dad, who really sucked, but before him, his grandfather was Garyon the Golden, and Garyon was the younger son of a Lannister lord. I'm pretty bad with names, so again, I might not get it. But
he's so bad with names.
Yeah.
There's so many of the historic
well, there's so many
I
names,
don't
and they're
know.
so close. So I'm pretty sure this was the Gray Lion that you see in the Dunk and Egg stories. And he was at the very first. He was at the tourney at Ashenvale or what? Yeah, the first Dunk and Egg book. And he was known as the Gray Lion. He had twin sons. and the older one who was in line died, and then the second son was Garyon, and he took over as a regent for his niece, who then passed away. So they don't know if he did kill her, if he didn't kill. I mean, it probably was natural cause. He didn't seem like a savage. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. So this guy, he ushered in an age of prosperity for the Lannister household. He was very smart, very determined. He had 3 sons. And maybe I was lying about him being a twin, because now that I say it, I know for a fact that he had 3 sons. Garyon, which is the youngest... No, Garyon the Golden is who this is. Tytos Lannister is the youngest of the 3 sons. And there were 2 twins who... the elder one was slated to marry a Rain, like Jane Rain or something like that.
Okay.
And she really wanted to be Lady of Casterly Rock. And while they were betrothed, he died or was killed. And so she went to the other twin and married him. And so that really pissed off Garyon the Golden. But at this point, he couldn't do anything. Anyway, the other twin dies, and she doesn't have any kids, and now she's out of being Lady of Casterly Rock again. So she sneaks into Tytos' bedroom, and she's so demanding to, like, whatever. He can't do it because he's just a weak-willed guy. And he runs to his wife and, like, I forget her. I know she's a Marbrand. But anyway, he runs back to her.
Bad with names.
Huh? Yeah. Anyway.
I know she's a Marbrand.
Yeah, well, I don't know her first name. Anyway, so he runs back. The Lady Marbrand tells Garyon the Golden what happened. And he's like, all right, this bitch is getting married off. So he marries her to... Lord Tarbeck, who's an old guy, and he has like shitty lands, the ore mines had depleted, everything was decrepit. So she was kind of getting what she deserved for trying to marry 3 different fucking Lannisters. Anyway,
it's almost kind of like George R.R. maybe saying like how history repeats itself, because almost that same exact thing happens later with Marjorie.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good point. I never really thought about it. But Marjorie didn't eventually have to go marry
only because she was killed.
Yeah. In the show.
Who knows?
You don't know how it's going to go down in the
books.
Oh,
really? Oh, that's true. That's true.
Except the Baylor hasn't been blown up. Just throwing that out there. So, yes. So, Garyon died very shortly after Tywin was born. And Tytos ended up being this really weak-willed lord. Well, the Rains were the equivalent of the Boltons in the north, the Florence and the anyway. Every house has.
Are the Rains a house that we still see?
No.
Okay, that's coming.
I need to get a glass of wine for this story. Then. People are gonna die.
What you have is you have. This really rich, weak-willed lord who just wants to make everybody happy. And in that kind of position, you can't just want everybody to be happy. You're going to be taken advantage of. Like, you need to have some inner strength, and this guy had none.
Right.
So people were taking out loans left and right, not repaying them. He was forgiving debts left and right, not doing anything. So Tywin grew up seeing his house literally being laughed at. And there was this game that was played. It was called Yanking the Tail of the Lion. And it was seeing how much fun you could make of the Lord to his face without him getting mad.
Right.
So you'd never be like, oh, go fuck yourself or whatever. But you'd be like, oh, yeah, I once heard the tale of a lion, or something like that. Right. So, again, and Tywin just grew up with this, and again, I can't even imagine the shame and humility that must have brought. Right. And
somebody like him.
Now, I don't want to jump the gun too much. Maybe this comes into the story, but is this kind of where the whole Lannisters always repay their debts come from?
Yes.
Because he went after the debts, and they don't want to be seen as like hypocrites that won't do the same.
So there was another younger brother that when the War of the Nine Penny Kings broke out, he was in charge of the Lannister forces, and the Tytos stayed in Casterly Rock. And his 3 sons went down. Tywin was a knight. He was knighted before they went to the Stepstones. Kevin was knighted at the end of the Stepstones. Anyway, what happened was the uncle died, and one of the Rains took over. Just assumed command. And I'm sure that drove, Tywin nuts. But there wasn't really much to do.
Tywin around this
Tywin's
time?
like 15, 16.
Okay.
He's really good friends with Robert Baratheon's dad.
Okay.
And he's really good friends with Aerys II,
Okay.
who was just a prince at the time. And so they go to the Stepstones. That war plays out the way that it does. But what happens is Tywin now has battle-hardened troops that are loyal to him.
Right.
So, yeah, this guy might have had command, but there's no way that Tywin was going to let this guy run everything. They don't really go into it or express it. But at the end of it, he had loyal troops. And so he comes back and he basically shoves his dad in a closet and is like, fuck this. I'm bringing back House Lannister, bitches. And so he does.
So he did shove his dad in the closet then.
Not
so his
really.
dad was still around.
Yes, his dad was.
I know,
his dad
not
was still
literally.
around.
Then again, Tyrion did shoot him in a water closet.
So
sorry, folks. If you haven't watched it, you're an idiot.
Yeah. Why are you listening to this?
So what happened then was a lot of people started paying their debts. A lot of people would give up hostages, but the Rains and the Tarbecks were having none of it. And so he grabbed a hostage, and Lady Tarbeck grabbed 3 hostages. And this is when Tytos got himself out of the closet and was like, okay, I'm going to settle this. And so he demands that Tywin release his captive. Tywin's like, you know what? No, fuck it. Go ahead and let my cousins die. We need to fucking prove that we are as good as our word. And his dad overruled him with the only display of power he ever had, ever. And, so that happened. There was a little peace for a time. And then he just straight up, Tywin, after 2 months, straight up went to war with the Tarbecks. Before the Rains could marshal their forces, before the Tarbecks even knew what was happening. He had his forces deployed, and he the keep that it was in, it had these nice new walls and all this other stuff, but a trebuchet I guess brought down the old keep on top of the scheming bitch. And that's one of the few times that he smiled.
So from this story, it's true that a Lannister always pays his debts is a relatively modern
thing.
Phrase for their house. Whereas if, for example, winter is coming, it's quite old.
Those are house words.
Right.
I don't know how long.
What's Lannister? It is.
Oh, it's
Lannister.
Hear Me Roar.
Hear me roar. That's right.
Yeah.
Very different. Thank you, sir. Thank you for clarifying that.
So, anyway, so the
Yeah, because remember when what's his name is questioning Arya in that one episode?
Bran. It's episode 1.
Yeah. And she says,
what's their name?
Always pay their debts. And he's like, well, that's something that they often say, but that's not their...
Yes.
That's Hear Me Roar for sure. So the Rains are pissed off naturally that their sister was killed in a war that had nothing to do, anyway. So they go thinking that they can just march out and meet Tywin in battle, and Tywin got the jump on him, wiped him off the field.
Wow.
Shot the Lord in the back with a crossbow bolt. His younger brother's really savvy, and so he like the Casterly Rock, their primary
And you're talking Kevin then. Kevin?
No, not Kevin. I'm talking about the Rains.
Oh, the Rains' younger brother.
So there was Roger Rain, who has a bolt in his back, who's the Lord.
Gotcha.
And then his younger brother takes everybody, the whole garrison, and they go inside their castle, which is mostly underground because it's gold mine is how they make their money.
Right.
Well, Tywin finds the nearest stream, dams it, and diverts the stream into these caves, and then brings down the rocks in front of all the exits.
Drowns him out.
So you have water that can get in, you have people that can't get out, and he exterminates everybody in that, small folk. Whoever went in there never came out.
Wow.
And
What is the name of their hold at this point?
Castamere.
Oh, they were in Castamere.
It's
Okay.
the rains that were in Castamere.
Gotcha.
And so the singer wrote the song, The Rains of
Castamere.
Right.
Which is where that all comes
The Rains of Castamere.
from. Which is now how
No, Rob!
Ancient
No!
house.
Yeah, they also drown,
Yeah.
which is also kind of...
But, yeah.
Rob should have just married the
rains
Frey.
were...
Rob should have just married a
good.
Frey.
Oh,
Would have done us an aid there.
should have just found another way around.
Yeah.
Although she did end up being quite pretty.
I always thought that the smartest thing they could have done was Theon. I wish Theon would have remembered more. Like, if he wasn't so arrogant and he remembered how crazy his dad was about the old way.
Right.
If he just sat there and he didn't present it like, oh, Rob will make you a king, you know? If he would have presented it as, you know, hey, just so you know, this guy over here, he's looking for an ally.
Right.
He doesn't give a shit what you call yourself.
Right.
And then, you know, well,
Let's go take it.
yeah,
back.
let's make our kingdom. Like,
Right.
why don't we start with Lannisport? Okay, maybe that's not the best idea because Tywin has a long memory, but I always thought that going after the Reach would have been great. If Theon could have led going against the Reach, like, why would you want... I've been in the North for 9 years. Let me tell you, you don't want nothing up there.
Right.
Nothing but pine cones and, you know, Pebble should do what Asha did and then be like, but the Reach, I hear, kind of has some awesome shit. Like,
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
so
I've been up there for 9 years. They have a lot of snow. A lot of fucking snow.
Yeah.
Let's get out of
go
here.
pound sand.
Yep.
But it's definitely pretty clear in the show, at least, that he's not the brightest guy. in
Yeah,
the
I'd say
group.
books too. I mean, he's not bright in the books, but he's similar. I think they played him well in the show,
Yeah.
honestly.
I agree. I just you know, he's a narcissist.
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
thing. You know, he went into it, and again, now that he's humbled, he really does see a whole lot more.
Right.
I know in the books they talk about Roose Bolton, and he's like, I cannot believe I was so blind as to make fun of this guy to his face.
Right.
Like, this is not somebody you fuck with.
Yeah.
And you know,
And
again,
that's how
he
he
was
felt.
so oblivious before.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's just hanging out with Ned and
Yeah,
Ned's family
he's very
and say
entitled
whatever
and
he wants,
close-minded.
and you know. But Bolton, whoo, that guy, yowza. So
Not somebody to have as an enemy.
that was really educational. I'm glad I asked that question about the Lannisters. Actually,
Yeah.
It's all in the world of Ice and Fire.
that's awesome.
Yep.
And I'm so busy reading other stuff.
Yeah, I know.
That's why you're on the podcast.
Yep. But,
That's awesome. So I don't know. Maybe we pick another house. You got a house you're curious about?
Yeah, actually, I am a little curious about exactly. I know just from the show that the Starks are, like, they say that they're basically like, we're always there, but like, how far back do they actually go? Like, were the Starks around with the children of the forest or whatever they call them?
yeah, most likely. It was they traced their lineage back to Brandon the Builder, and
Who built the wall in
Yeah.
the north?
Right.
And depending on whose
Supposedly.
sources you're talking to, he also built Storm's End. There's a really, cool
Really?
story behind Storm's End, but yeah, it was
Storm's End too, huh? That's a long distance
and
away.
Winterfell. So
So my other question is then, if there were people that were there kind of coexisting with the children of the forest, and then more people came, how come there couldn't be some type of like brokerage of non-combat? Because according to the show anyway, I don't know if we know this, but according to the show anyway, they kind of created the White Walkers as like a weapon, and because they were fighting with the humanoids or humans that came. But if they were already coexisting with some lineage of human, like how come, I don't know, it just seems weird. Like how exactly did that fighting come about? Do we have much information on that?
no, it's very unclear as to whether or not when there are a few things that just predate history. They talk about runes, but I don't know that there's ever been any translation of the runes. But that was the only way that the old men or the first men kept track of anything.
Right.
So you have a lot of events that are happening prehistory. You have things like the Long Night. You have the building of the wall. You have the pact of the first men. So when the first men came with their bronze weapons, they totally outdid the obsidian.
Right.
And they fought the children of the forest, but there was a pact eventually where they got along with one another. So whether that predates the others or postdates the others, I don't know. That's a pretty big leap to be making if I was D.B. Weiss and you're...
Oh, so based on the television series, so they did make that connection.
I don't think that they did that just willy-nilly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they did that without consultation. But
will it turn out to be right or wrong? We don't know. Yeah.
Right.
So, and again, we
don't know. Yeah, it's a good point.
We don't know that the way to make others is just have a newborn child. You know what I mean? Like maybe.
Yeah. Because all we know in the books is that they take the kids that are offered, but that's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I mean, what if they just go and eat them? They could.
So.
Well, I also kind of was thinking that maybe somehow they just need a vessel, and that they actually do kill the kid, and that they inject some type of non-sexual, just single person type of reproduction, but you need a vessel, maybe. I don't know.
So that's like, it's weird. It's
because that's how the first ones were created according to the show. Yeah. Right. They just needed a vessel.
So. But it's still, they've done more in the show to uncover the lore of the White Walkers or to reveal the White Walkers than they really have in the books, in my opinion.
By a lot. I think by a lot. It's my opinion as well.
And even with the World of Ice and Fire and all the other short stories and all the wikis that I love spending time on,
they've kept it under wraps.
It's still really not talked about. So
and again, remember I don't know of people getting angry about that, but that doesn't bother me because of the fact that if it's right, it's right. If it's not, it's just a show. So to me, it's like I'm excited to see what's really in George R.R.'s head if he ever gets there.
Well, hold the door.
He could tell the whole damn story and realize that everything that far back is just is lore mystery as it's ever going to get, just like our particular reality.
So we don't really know outside of like Egyptians and Mesopotamia, but humankind's been around for how long?
I mean, there was if I take it into true history, the kind of the interesting story is the what they call them, the Flask people. The Flask people who lived in Europe. So there was people around the time of Stonehenge. There was two genetically different populations of people. One, and I'd correct me, history buffs, or don't correct me, just clarify. But basically, there's a people in the area of Britain, England, whatever, and these people started to just disappear. There was no evidence of war or anything. They were buried in mounds with flasks, always with these glass flasks. And
like
people came in. These people came in. Now, actually, this could be wrong. This has been a while since I read it. It was either the people disappeared and the Flask people just came in and started to take over already built, functioning villages and cities, or the Flask people were the ones disappearing. I can't remember which, but it was really interesting because they still find these like random mound graves in Europe where people are just buried for who knows how long, and they're always buried with these flasks. And there's also no evidence as to why these people, the original inhabitants of the area, started to disappear. And you could make all kinds of legends about that, but
but you'll never know.
You'll never know.
Yeah.
It's like
I always sit there and I think about like we sit there and we think of prehistory people as being stupid, but the reality is they are exactly as intelligent as us. So to think that they're stupid is really kind of short-sighted on our end. Like they did, the Iceman that they found in the Alps. Yeah, he was from like Corsica or Sardinia. Like, how crazy is that? Like, or his DNA most closely matches that of people who now live in Corsica and Sardinia.
Right.
Which, I mean, again, did they migrate to the islands? Did
or
they
was
migrate
he
off
traveling?
the islands?
What
or-
was going on?
Again,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's crazy to think about some of that stuff. So, whether George R.R. reveals or not,
Yeah.
I'm okay with them, adding a little bit of that story element into the show. But it's wild to think about some of that stuff. So,
I definitely think that if the canon from the books ends up matching the show, I think it's a very interesting idea of of them basically kind of creating a weapon that they can no
Lost
longer
control of.
control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it almost kind of reminds me a little bit of like us creating like the atomic bomb or something. And
Or
now you have
AI.
like or AI. AI I think is an even better example.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that the
because
AI is going to do is create
it's just
another
going to start
AI.
thinking for itself. Yeah.
One of the, and not to break us off Game of Thrones, but I was kind of really interested in the depiction of AI in the recent Netflix cover/book that we were just talking
Altered
about,
Carbon.
Altered Carbon.
Altered Carbon, yeah.
Because it's different. It's different than what I would have expected, but pretty cool in its
Yeah.
own right. A little bit different. But anyway, I don't want to get us off Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But that was just kind of an interesting little shout out. Maybe we'll do an episode on that in the future, folks.
It'd also be fun to do a philosophy episode where you just break down the philosophies of the book.
Yeah. I mean, that we absolutely need to do that at some
Yeah.
point. So,
Anyway, history.
yeah. So,
Although the history kind of turns also into, I got questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like any questions, man. That's what I'd rather field as opposed to
So-
me telling you the history that.
Well, I'd also well, are we still on a specific topic? Do you have something that you want
I
to move
have
on
two
to?
more
Go
topics
for
that I
it.
was going to ask, but I don't need to take over now.
Well, I mean, I don't know. There's just like definitely areas of the world that who did not read all the books. I only read like the first two.
Let's do that first. That'll get some clarity, and then I'll ask some deeper questions from the books.
Yeah, I just would like more clarification on like some of the other areas that aren't Westeros, because I just find, to me, like all of that stuff over there, kind of until we see like the Bank of Bravos and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah.
All those areas over there just basically almost looked like inconsequential desert for a long time.
You're talking in the beginning of the show.
In the
when
beginning of
they're
the
just
show,
traveling around
we're
with
just
the
following Daenerys
with the
go
the
through
Dragos.
desert, right?
With the Horde. What was the gang called?
The
Called Dragos.
Dothraki.
Kalasar.
Kalasar.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you. Whew, it's been a while. Wow. Yowza.
So it's very rich. I can tell you that much. A few years ago, there was I don't know what to call it, but a series of maps that were put in not a book, but a book-like thing, and it was the Lands of Ice and Fire, and it's a much bigger world than you would think, and then there is again the history is really. It's interesting. It's
Yeah.
not. They don't delve into great detail, but they give you enough to sit there and think. There's way more to this than not. So if you just take like Ashai, it is really weird and really creepy. It is a shadow city. Like it's nobody knows who built it.
Right.
It's not populated. It's not very populated. It's like, okay, this was made for 100,000 people. Okay, we maybe have 10.
Right.
You know. And then there's no children there, I believe. Again, sorry, I don't have the notes in front of me, and I don't have the page open. But it's different. Like the shadows are weird. That's where the shadow binders come from. She seems to be one. I don't know if you guys remember Quaithe, but she's the woman
Which
who.
one's Quaithe?
Quaithe is she's one of the three people who first came to meet Daenerys. Okay. So when her Kalasar was in the Red Waste. Pyat Pri the Warlock, I believe, was one. It's been a little while since I read, so forgive me, but she was one of the wise people, and she's always given Daenerys sage advice. She's the one who said to go north, to go
East,
west.
to go west, you must go east.
I believe
that was
is.
That was it.
Yeah, and. To go north, you must go south. Again, she gave her that prophecy, and she appears, and it's really weird, and she just gives these cryptic messages. But she's a Shadowbinder, and that's Ashai. You have the Let me take a look. The Great Waste. Oh, Yiti, I want to call it. But that's the equivalent of like China. Like there's an emperor there, and like there's history. You know, like if Westeros is Western history, there's enough room to go ahead and put Chinese history, which I've been reading a little bit about, and man, that's awesome. But it's crazy.
One of the
and
best
interesting
classes I ever took was that Chinese history.
Right.
Oh, I'm sure.
For my degree back in college, and medieval history actually, which was amazing as well.
I did get confirmation. I was reading or listening to, and it was just happened today. But the Smoking Sea did not exist pre-Valyria Cataclysm.
That answered one of the things we were talking about last time.
That was it was a scene in A Dance with Dragons.
Yeah,
and I forget what. Yeah, whoever she stayed with in Karth, he brought a tapestry, and she's like, "There's no Smoking Sea," and I was like, "I knew it."
Nice,
but yeah.
It's going to be really cool because I think before certainly before the next book comes out, but maybe even before the next season comes out, we'll probably do some episodes on the books as we reread them.
Right.
But maybe we just do the show when the season comes out, and then just do the books when the book's coming out.
Right.
Because by this point, we don't really know how aligned they are.
Yeah.
So they're so crazy, and I don't know what's going on with the show, but either way.
Another random question I had about the world is like how much, how complete, do they give you any idea of how complete our knowledge of the world is? Are there areas of the world that nobody in the world really knows about? Like, or is it like a spherical world that's all encompassing that everybody kind of has explored thoroughly at this point?
Well, there's more than 3 continents.
Okay.
So I don't know that it's common knowledge in the world that the world is spherical.
Yeah, they haven't really commented
They haven't
at
really
all.
commented on it. I think Euron has figured it out, and I'm sure other people have as well. But just looking at the map of the known world and just kind of putting together how long it took Victarion to go from the Iron Islands to Marine, and then to know, like, there's this guy Corlys Velaryon, and he's really, really big in both rogues and dangerous women, and he was famous for like voyages and trading, and he was immensely wealthy, and he went as far as Karth, and then he came back. Well, he didn't know that you could have just kept going a little bit further, and you would have ended up on the other side of Westeros and saved yourself. It's like if we skipped out on the Panama Canal. You went to India to go ahead and sail all the way back to Japan. Yeah.
What's kind of interesting about that is the one argument, and maybe that's why it hasn't been touched on yet, flat around. Logically, people may think flat right away, but obviously the fastest distance traveled, especially in the air, you find are curves. Yeah. And because of the fact that you have dragon riders, I would be wondering if they might figure it out like earlier than us. Like maybe it would take the sailors, but maybe they hold that knowledge for themselves.
Well, why would the Valyrians give that up?
They may not. That's what I mean. They may have known though, or maybe they didn't know. But it just seems like if you're flying that high, when you go high enough, you could kind of see the curve.
Well, they can't get that high; they'd freeze to death.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Also,
I don't know with dragons.
We don't know how big the planet is.
We don't either. Yeah.
If it's 3 times as big as Earth, it takes.
But certainly they hadn't commented on it. But that's kind of a fun question. Hey, so I've got a question that I want to bring up. And I don't know if you remember it. If you don't, we'll save it until you get there in the audiobook session that you're doing now. But I remember a story about a murderer or like a butcher of a castle in the north. I think it was
the Rat King.
The Rat King
of the Night Fort.
Yeah, the Rat King of the Night Fort, who eventually ate his own.
No,
I can't remember the story itself, but what I was curious is because I don't remember the context as much, except for that they were telling the story about the fort. But is there any history along with it? And then can you explain the context?
I don't know. That might just be a legend that goes along with, the Night Fort.
Okay.
I'm sure the atrocity happened. I don't think that the rest of it happened, but the story is simple enough and quick enough that I feel like I should tell you. There was a king and his sons were visiting the Night Fort, and the rat cook was the cook, and what he did was he killed the sons, and he put them into a meat pie
And served it to
the dad.
Right. Yeah.
And now he was doomed, not because, he was cursed, and it wasn't just because, he killed the kids and then fed them to the dad, which is
he
pretty
offered
heinous.
them
It's
as
because he gave
guests.
him guest right,
Yeah.
and he broke guest right.
Yeah.
So
that's
as
right.
far as
And that had to do during the time of Frey.
legend, yeah.
Right? Didn't they talk about those two? It was almost, was it foreshadowing even?
Yeah.
Or was that after? It might have been good foreshadowing.
So,
Damn, that was good foreshadowing if it was.
that would be really cool if Arya fed the dad or kids, I don't know.
Well, just the breaking of guest right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like if that, I can't remember, but if that story happened before the time in the books when...
This is like prehistory. It would be like what you would
No,
tell.
if the story happened in the literature, in George R.R.'s timeline, because it was, wasn't it Bran and Sam, or no, Sam... No, it wasn't Sam. It was Bran and the
story
Reeds.
was definitely told right around the same time. I don't know that it was
Yeah.
necessarily before or after.
If it was before, it's good foreshadowing.
I would
if it was
say
after,
it was after.
Then
And
it's
it's more implying the consequences that are going to fall on House Frey.
foreshadowing the consequences.
So,
nice. Either way, good foreshadowing.
Yeah, so it's going to be
Here.
And the Rat King. By the way, the Rat King, they turned him into a massive rat, and the only things that he could eat were his children.
Oh.
So
Dang.
that might be the foreshadowing, but which I think they did well on the show with him eating.
Yeah.
The
Did Arya know that story? Is that why she
I'm
did that?
sure she did.
So
because it was Bran who told the story. So
Oh, okay.
I wonder, that's great foreshadowing. And then secondly, I wonder that it might even be more gruesome when something like that happens in the book.
Yeah.
So that's all the time we have today, folks. Again, if you have any questions to ask the Rye, we can put them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, comment on YouTube, comment on SoundCloud. We're everywhere. Just find us and comment. Look for our match logo, and we will get your questions to the Rye for investigation and answering. And with that, cheers.
Cheers.
cheers. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for the info.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode of Lit Literature. If you liked us, please check out our social media at Lit Literature 1 at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't hesitate to join in on the conversation. We appreciate the conversation, the questions, book recommendations, anything of that sort. Join in right on the social media websites. And don't forget to check us out at our website, litliterature.com, and our upcoming projects, though there aren't many now besides Lit Literature, you can find at lyket.net, Lyket. We do have a Patreon account, but if you truly want to support us, please like and share. Cheers.